Native American occupation of Alcatraz was a turning point for Native Americans, making them more well known and helping them expand and flourish as a whole.
What was the occupation of Alcatraz?
The occupation of Alcatraz was really it was a protest. It was a movement that was founded and started by a group of young American Indian college students. A lot of those students had come to San Francisco during the relocation time, the 1950s, under the Federal Termination Act, which was a federal act designed to erase Native cultures, languages, practices, and to assimilate American Indians. So a lot of Native Americans by the thousands were relocated from their tribal territories to cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, Denver, New York, Los Angeles, all throughout the country. And in San Francisco, there was a hotbed of political activity because the Vietnam War was going on. The Black Panther movement was happening in Oakland and the Bay Area, and in San Francisco, the farm workers movement was happening. The women's movement had just started. And young American Indians at San Francisco State organized to take over the island in protest of the federal government's treatment of American Indians across the United States.
It was the beginning of a new era of self-determination for Native people. It was the beginning of new hope and inspiration for Native American people compared to the past, where the past was all very termination oriented.
The first 89 Native Americans that went there, led by Richard Oakes, wrote the Proclamation of Alcatraz, and it states,
"We, the Native Americans, reclaim this land known as Alcatraz Island in the name of all American Indians by right of discovery. We wish to be fair and honorable in our dealings with the Caucasian inhabitants of this land, and hereby offer the following treaty. We will purchase said Alcatraz Island for $24 in glass beads and red cloth, a precedent set by the white man's purchase of a similar island about 300 years ago. We know that $24 in trade goods for these 16 acres is more than was paid when Manhattan Island was sold, but we know that land values have risen over the years. Our offer of $1.24 per acre is greater than the 47 cents per acre the white man is now paying the California Indians for their land. We will give to the inhabitants of this island a portion of that land for their own, to be held in trust by the American Indian government, for as long as the sun shall rise and the rivers go down to the sea, to be administered by the Bureau of Caucasian Affairs."
Richard, you're presenting this to me now?
Yes, sir. "We will further guide the inhabitants in the proper way of living. We will offer them our religion, our education, our life ways, in order to help them achieve our level of civilization and thus raise them and all their white brothers up from their savage and unhappy state. We offer this treaty in good faith and wish to be fair and honorable in our dealings with all white men."
Before they claimed Alcatraz, Native Americans' history had been completely erased from textbooks, or they were being painted as bad guys in movies and TV shows. So, what were some of the best experiences you had on island? I bet you had a lot of fun with what you're telling us right now, but what was your best, most captivating experience on the island?
One day, we were cruising around, and there was a young Native man, and I don't know how he did it, but they brought all these teepee poles. They were lodgepole pines. They still needed to be peeled, and he was putting up this teepee, and he wanted help skinning the poles. And so he said, "Hey, you kids, come over here." And all the other kids ran away, but I stayed, and I peeled poles all day long. And I helped him put up the teepee, and at the end of it, he gave me a red-tailed hawk feather, and he was kind of stern and very serious. And he said to me, he said, "Young man, this is a very sacred this is a very sacred thing. You can't buy them. You can only earn them. And today you earned it. And so that was the very first feather that I ever earned. I still have it. And then when that teepee went up, people took photos of the teepee. You can Google it online. It became an international beacon and symbol for the movement. And it really increased the awareness of the struggle for Native people, for self-determination.
On the 9th of November 1969, Richard Oakes, a group of Native American students, and a group of urban Native Americans from the Bay Area planned to take back the island of Alcatraz. Many Indian students came, and everyone involved in the taking back of Alcatraz were called Indians of all tribes. On the 20th of November 1969, Richard Oakes would lead around 90 Native Americans to the island and claim it. Even though the authorities warned them the occupation was illegal, the Native American people continued, claiming old warden homes and guardhouses to live in, cook, and do other needs such as bathing and getting water.
How did you get involved with the occupation of Alcatraz?
Oh, I was on relocation through the Bureau of Indian Affairs program into San Francisco, and then I got into UC Berkeley as the very first Native American student at Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
And then we organized and joined the Third World Strike for Native American Studies, Chicano Studies, Asian Studies, and Black Studies. And we were successful. And after we were successful and set up our departments, then that same year, we finished in negotiations in March of '69. And then by September, October, we had already set up our departments of Native American Studies. And I was the chairperson for Native American Studies at UC Berkeley. And Richard Oakes was the chairperson at San Francisco State, and we just got together and took the island.
During the occupation, most Indian students had to return to school and were replaced by photographers and hippies who were just there to live rent free. Richard Oakes' daughter would fall to her death, and not long after they left. This led many others to leave too. Then, in May of 1970, the government would cut off all electrical lines and telephone services, making life more unbearable there. Then, a fire in June would destroy many of Alcatraz's buildings, making this led to many more people leaving. Then, only 15 were left, but those people who persevered were then forcibly removed by the government and the U.S. Coast Guard. Even though the occupation ended, it stood for something for the Native American people. Then, because of this, the U.S. government later returned millions of acres of ancestral land all across the country and passed more than 15 legislative proposals and laws supporting tribal self-rule. The occupation also ended the Indian Termination Policy. This policy forced Native Americans to live off reservations in urban areas. This occupation greatly influenced the government decision to terminate the policy, in which Native Americans were allowed to live on reservations or where they pleased. It also brought forth the Self-Determination and Assistance Act of 1975, where it allowed for Native Americans to build their own programs such as schools and museums.